AirVenture in Oshkosh, Wisconsin is the largest air show on Earth. In this video, we take a look back at the AirVenture 2018 flying displays and the dozens of extraordinary aircraft that participated in them. These are the highlights of the world's greatest aviation celebration. Working our way sequentially through the show days, we start on Monday with one of the defining characteristics of AirVenture, the mass arrivals, and in this case it is the Warbirds of America. And of course, should this or any of the other performances catch your eye, there are longer individual videos of most of the displays at the Airshow Stuff Videos YouTube channel. On to some of the more regular displays now. This is a Beech Baron, which isn't usually considered an airshow performer, but it's flown here by David Martin. He's about to do something rather extraordinary. And if you look carefully, you'll see both engines have now stopped as David performs dead stick aerobatics. One of the highlights of AirVenture 2018 for Warbird fans was this pairing of F7F Tigercats. This twin-engine naval fighter entered service in 1944 and saw service both in the Second World War and later during the Korean War. Unfortunately, one of these aircraft suffered a tyre blowout a couple of days into the show, but managed to come to a stop safely on the runway. On to day 2 now, when we start Tuesday's action with a mass arrival of Van's RV kit planes. One of the big themes for AirVenture 2018 was the 80th anniversary of the T6 Texan. Here are 4 of them in the hands of the Aeroshell Aerobatic team. 15,500 of these incredibly successful training aircraft were built, and operated by a total of 62 nations. The South African Air Force kept their Texans in the training role until 1995. And here's another Texan team, the Geico Skytypers, flying in this case the SNJ-2, which is the naval version of the T-6. Another country to operate the T-6 was the UK, and that nation's Air Force celebrated its centenary this year. This was marked in the Tuesday flying display with an RAF 100 segment featuring a Chipmunk, Spitfire and Jet Provost. Like the Harvard, the Chipmunk and the JP were hugely successful trainers in their day. 734 JPs were built, introduced into service in 1955 and operated by 10 countries.
Before they let you land, you can just come in behind them. If the logistical thing on the ground has nothing to do with it.
Throughout its service, this Viper turbojet-powered trainer would be the first aeroplane new Royal Air Force pilots would fly, and it very quickly became clear that pilots who started on the Jet Provost were completing their training much faster than those who started on prop-driven aircraft like the Chipmunk. And the Spitfire, of course, needs no introduction, so I'll stop talking, so you can hear the sound of that wonderful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine.
Boss, let me know when the B-1 is clear of the runway up there.
And now for something quite different. Honeywell's Boeing 757-200. The aircraft is a flying test bed for Honeywell's aircraft engines. There's a mounting point just aft of the cockpit where a third engine can be attached for trials and tests. It's giving us an extremely spirited takeoff there. The aircraft is also used to test Honeywell's other products, such as weather radar, in-flight internet connectivity, and others. And speaking of unusual aircraft, take a look at this. This bizarre flying machine is the Yak 110, and it's quite simply two Yak 55 stuck together with a jet engine mounted between the two fuselages, and it is absolutely unlike any other aircraft in the world. Power-to-weight ratio of greater than 1:1. Look at it just hang there. pushing negative G into tail slide of sorts. Quite unlike anything I've seen before. Now tumbling out in a rather atypical manner. By comparison, the conventional aerobatics of Sean D. Tucker look rather ordinary, which of course they're not. This is Sean's last time at Oshkosh as a solo aerobatic pilot. He retired from solo displays at the Wings Over Houston Air Show in October, and next year he'll be leading a new formation team. Day 3, and an unexpected highlight was a mini demonstration by the Blue Angels passing by Oshkosh while flying to their next show. Another military demonstration, the US Air Force Heritage Flight, beginning with an F-16C mini demonstration. The formation today featuring an F-16, P-51 and Skyraider, but let's jump ahead to Thursday when a second P-51 took the Skyraider's place. This is Moonbeam McSwine, which was flown for many years by airshow legend Vlado Lenoch. The Warbird Heritage Foundation had brought it back to America this year from its home in France in honour of Vlado, who sadly passed away in 2017. And this was its first major Heritage Flight appearance since its return. And now, another of those uniquely Oshkosh moments as the sky fills with parachute jumpers.
Parts of the crowd to see that up there right now, so we'd like to say thank you, Oshkosh, for making this possible. We're honoring you with a bladed pep propeller and free fall. Here comes the break off, and what I'm going to do is stop talking so you can hear the 62 canopies open as these Skyraider.
And as the lightning that cancelled the night show flashes away there, those who did stay on the airfield to brave the weather were treated to something quite spectacular as the B-1B Lancer made its departure. We saw earlier in the week a large formation of Van's RV kit planes, and on Thursday here is another one. The bottom formation is the Falcon Flight Aerobatic team. The two soloists are now breaking away in preparation for their part of the display. Solos from the left and right, position clocks. Back now to the United States Air Force with the mighty C-17 Globemaster III. That's a rapid roll rate. And this aircraft is very versatile all round. Not only is it manoeuvrable and absolutely vast with cargo capacity comparable to the 747, but it can also take off from unprepared runways. .279 C-17s have been built, and they're used by 9 air arms around the world. And now on to the classic jet segment. Let's look at some of the types on show. F-86 Sabre, T-33 Shooting Star, L-39 Albatross, and here's one of the more unique ones, F5 Tiger II.
It appears to be going fast. The design.
And finally, a fine example of the first Allied jet aircraft and the oldest flying jet in the world currently, the Gloucester Meteor T7 of the World Heritage Air Museum. This aircraft was owned by vintage jet collector Marty Tibbets, who was tragically killed in an accident shortly before the show, and here 4 L-39s pay tribute to him.
Ready, ready, pull.
30 seconds out.
On to Friday now, and we start with Red Bull Air Race pilot Kirby Shambliss and the Red Bull BO-105 helicopter. This kind of helicopter aerobatics was pioneered by the German army back in the 1980s, but now Red Bull's pilots have brought it back to the airshow world. This particular display flown by Aaron Fitzgerald. And now a new aerobatic team. Trojan Thunder fly the T-28 Trojan, as the name would suggest, and this is their very first airshow season. Like the T6, the T-28 has enjoyed an extremely long service life. Came into service in 1950, just under 2,000 were produced, and they were operated by 28 nations. The Philippine Air Force finally retired the type in 1994. Here we have a two-ship display by a pair of very famous bomber types. B-17 Flying Fortress accompanied by one of only two flying B-29 Super Fortresses. And indeed, at last year's AirVenture, both B-29s came together for only the second time, along with a gaggle of B-17s and B-25s for a quite extraordinary bomber lineup, which also included the trio of modern-day US Air Force strategic bombers. You can find our Oshkosh 2017 report on the Airshow Stuff YouTube channel. And now a rare formation of 5 DC-3s and C-47s. The type made its first flight in 1935, and of the two models, around 16,000 were built. Incredibly, the type is still in active military and civilian service, which is absolutely incredible. The group are flying to raise awareness for the D-Day Squadron, an organisation raising money to bring as many Dakotas as possible to the Dax over Normandy event in Britain and France next June, as part of the D-Day 75th anniversary commemorations.
Okay, the pull line
Saturday's show featured a selection of impressive flypasts, and first up is United States Air Force B-52H Stratofortress. Here an extremely energetic series of flypasts and passes by a pair of F-22A Raptors. And now something altogether more unique, a NASA S3 Viking. The type was originally used for anti-submarine warfare, later utilised in the aerial refuelling role, and NASA use it on a variety of roles including atmospheric research and satellite communications. One of the main themes for AirVenture 2018 was Year of the Tanker, and that was represented with a further series of flypasts. First up, a KC-135 Strato tanker. Next past the crowd, a KC-10 extender. And finally, a C-130P Hercules. Equally as important as the day shows are the night displays, and we'll look at two acts from the Saturday night show. First up, the Class of 45 and F4U4 Corsair and P-51D Mustang. and now a full pyro display by Redline Air Shows. What people tend not to realise about this kind of show, and I say this as someone who works as ground crew for another pyro team, is just how much work it is to set up. For a 5-minute display, preparing all the pyrotechnics and rigging them to the aircraft will take a substantial part of the day. Sometimes we even start the day before. It's just such a labour-intensive job. Sadly, Redline pilot John Fokker died at an accident at the Culpeper Airfest some months later, and we present this coverage of the Redline show as a tribute to him. So that's it. That rounds off our look back at AirVenture in Oshkosh for 2018. Remember that you can find extended videos of all the performances in this film and others on the Airshow Stuff Videos YouTube channel, so do check those out. We'll see you again from AirVenture 2019. Until then though, goodbye for now.